Is there any peace movement on the ground that you know of in Taiwan? Is there any domestic dissent or opposition to Taiwan's mass spending on US weapons? Recently, there was a $750 million arms sale that we uplifted, educated on, and tried to oppose at CODEPINK, howitzers and pretty sophisticated equipment, actually, that goes in opposition to the 3 communiques agreement to not sell sophisticated weapons. Also, just generally Taiwan's increasing reliance on US military involvement and US troops being on Taiwanese soil.
I don't think there's currently any organized movement, but for people who understand Chinese, I highly recommend you go on YouTube and Google these street interviews that conducted on streets of Taipei. So Taiwan people are asked about their views on the usefulness of this US weaponry, and almost all of them says these weapons are useless, but all agree this is a price they have to pay for some sort of American help. So it's essentially protection money. Everybody understand these high budget, high price items are outdated. It's not actually useful. It's just something they have to keep feeding the US military industrial complex to keep US happy, so they take Taiwan's side. So that's kind of the overvailing public opinions on the street.
Yeah, the disclosure that troops have been in Taiwan, US troops, for over a year. Some people have been assuming that for a while, but the public disclosure was not welcomed by Beijing, definitely. And in many ways, the US military causes devastation and violence for anyone on bases that are overseas, like economic deprivation, violence from accidents, contamination like PFAS chemicals, military crimes, etc. I also want to bring up, you talked about indigeneity in Taiwan, and we hear a lot of misconceptions, misinterpretations. We hear different narratives. It can be pretty confusing for just the average Western citizen trying to support the right thing. Can you speak to how these misconceptions or misunderstandings become entrenched, where that begins, particularly in the present day? And are there any parallels to how revisionist history gets taught elsewhere, like in the US?
The main backers of Taiwan separatist movement are not the Taiwan indigenous people. Let me put it that out there. They are the Han Chinese on Taiwan, which now consists of almost 98% of the Taiwan population. The 2% of the indigenous people on Taiwan has traditionally been marginalized, and that has been the case. And there's no when you hear media talking about native Taiwanese depending independence, they're not talking about indigenous Taiwan people demanding their island back. They're talking about the Han Chinese people on Taiwan who came to Taiwan, whose ancestor came to Taiwan before 1945. That's so there is a difference there. And in fact, I didn't want to go too much into detail about Taiwan domestic politics because I don't know how much of the interest is to the American audience, but I did cover that extensively with my talk with Xiang Yu on my podcast, the Taiwan History Series. So right now, Taiwan has 2 parties, just like US, like 2-party system. Taiwan has DPP and the KMT. The KMT still nominally pay lip service to like one China principle, and whereas DPP is normally seen as a pro-independence party. Now, the indigenous people on Taiwan vote overwhelmingly for KMT, and why? I think one person told Xiang Yu that at least the KMT has a decency to buy votes from us. The DPP does nothing for us. I mean, it's very it's very practical way approach. But so that that's that's people need to realize when the American media saying native Taiwanese demanding independence, they're not talking about the indigenous Austronesian people who have been living on the islands for thousands of years.